Where are we headed?
We're going to Camp Porcelain Peak.
Oh, yeah? Planning on smoking a little dope, having a little premarital sex, and getting slaughtered?
Here are your totally rad camp counselors, Tone, John, and Anthony. Woo!
Welcome back, campers. Let's get started with Season 2, Episode 35. I am going to be your host this week. I am not that nasally, but I am Counselor Tone, and I'm feeling pretty good here with you two nerds. John, how are you?
I'm feeling pretty all right. I got a couple days off coming up. I've got a long list of camp-themed horror movies to watch, which you'll find out about in the future. But yeah, I've been going between work and something that's going to show up in my watch list that's not really a watch, and then also...
Shocker.
Just...
He's the king of going completely off book with the watch list.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, hey, you want to watch something? No, I've got a whole bunch of things you can do.
I have a video game YouTube video.
Counselor Anthony, how are you doing this week?
I'm great. I'm very excited about all of the cool stuff that we have going on today with the podcast. Did a photo shoot, maybe going to be doing some live stuff, which is exciting. My birthday's tomorrow, and I'm going to the beach again, so I am excited to
be sunburnt.
to test the sun again, to challenge it, and come out the loser.
Fuck you, son!
Yeah.
All right, so enough of that shit. This week we are going to be telling you guys some flashlight under the chin, spooky campfire stories. John, hit us with that Are You Afraid of the Dark real quick. Yeah. So we're doing our little own Midnight Society at about 9 o'clock. And so
It's midnight somewhere.
we are going to be reading 3 stories, one from each of us, maybe dissecting them a little bit, talking about them, getting our spooks on, and show you guys what it really means to be at a camp. Because we know what that's like, because we've never been.
Plus, we'll also be getting some inspiration for our future campfire stories that we're writing ourselves.
Future, yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of more future, since we just keep talking about the future today, next week's episode is going to be even tighter. We got a special guest, but we'll talk more about that later. So we're going to jump into this episode with our news and trivia, as usual, in typical fashion. We'll get started with the news.
Fucking A, man.
Beep boop bop.
Well, you didn't like that?
I know. I
Oh, that was fantastic.
You see, Jason was my son, and today is his birthday.
Since we have been updating you throughout this whole quarantine process, I thought that it would be cool to let you guys know that Regal Cinemas has officially announced that they will be opening back up on July 10th. They're going to have special quarantine rules like we talked about previously. I probably still won't go myself, but it's cool that movies are going to be coming out because, then that means that people are going to start pirating again, so that's great.
Well, I mean, just think of how much of a fucking nightmare the movie theaters are going to be, even with limited capacity. Like, just the nightmare people that are going to be rolling into the movie theater.
And how spoiled they've been over the course of the last few months
Well,
of just being at home, being able to talk as loud as they
That's-
fucking want,
exactly,
being
that's
on
what-
their fucking phones.
Yeah, before I completely lost track of what I was trying to say, that is exactly what I was going to say. Is like, yeah, before I started turning it into like a Cronenberg movie plot.
You lost track mid-sentence? That's crazy.
I know, right? Come on, we already have too many calling cards. We can't call out every single idiosyncrasy. I just think that people are probably going to have completely abandoned all hope of theater etiquette, and it's going to be the wild goddamn west.
People
at
don't
Regal
even know
Theater.
that there's theater etiquette, man.
I am probably in the same boat. I think I'm going to wait at least until Tenet comes out, which is supposed to be the 31st now. That got pushed, which I'm glad about. I was expecting that it would. So
Yeah, it's gonna take a lot to get me out there. I'm not gonna go slum through it like I used to. Anyway, John, you got some news for us, yes?
I do. So, is one of those things that might pique your interest and get you back into the seats, Saint Maud from A24? Because they're saying that is going to be coming out on a date that exists.
No way. That's coming out on a date that exists?
That's John Brasher here with the hard-hitting news.
I love the precision.
Are we leaving all that bullshit in? Or
Yeah,
I'm,
that's out.
I'm standing some distance away from where the explosion went off. I'm not exactly sure what caused it or who was involved.
Like you didn't just have to check 2 seconds ago about when the theaters were opening back up, but it's coming out on
Shit was smooth as fuck, baby.
It's coming out on July 17th. I don't know where to.
Probably nowhere near us, except maybe the state, which, I mean, I haven't seen an official announcement about them reopening. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be a particularly wide release, especially if movies are limited.
AMC might get it because they typically get those A24 movies.
If AMC
and they're
still
talking
exists.
about they're talking about potentially opening.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Potentially. Anyway, before
These
that
words were ripped in twain.
All right, Anthony, what about you for some news, you fucks?
People were getting a little bit crazy on Twitter around was Stephen King the other day went on a little Twitter rant, which typically tends to be very political for Stephen King these days. But if you hop over to his Twitter, he has a little thread about the fact that he, at one point, had the idea to write a Friday the 13th movie, which, since that's been mostly what we've been talking about this entire month, I thought that was very exciting. He said that he wanted to do basically Friday the 13th meets Groundhog Day. He wants to do the many deaths of Jason, so the him being killed in a multitude of ways and coming back to life and having to relive that and what that would be like from his perspective.
So Happy Death Day from Jason's perspective?
Basically, yeah. Which I think sounds different, and that's what I'm down for. And I mean, it's Stephen King. If him wanting to do something that, to me, you would think he might find lowbrow, but I mean, he praises things like Evil Dead, so I think it would be interesting. He said that he thinks that Blumhouse should do it. So I even put on our story on the page, I was like, hey, Blumhouse, it's a call to arms. We're looking at you.
We've been telling you to get this fucking franchise.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, the rights are just in this crazy heated legal battle right now, which I think is why the subject came up on his Twitter.
Probably.
Just come in and try to buy majority stake and everything and be like, all right, so you guys can get some of the profits. We'll pay you some money up front and let us fucking just make a fucking blockbuster money-making machine.
And if anybody in the horror community has that big dick energy that could get stuff done, it's Stephen King. Absolutely.
Definitely.
The other bit of news that's a little bit shorter is that Joe Cornish, who directed the favorite movie of mine, Attack the Block, teased on a podcast recently that he actually had a conversation with John Boyega the other day, and they had discussed some ideas for a sequel to Attack the Block, which is something that I never thought we would get, but I'm very excited for that idea because that movie rocks. And for anybody who's a sci-fi fan, I think it's a must-see. It has to be on your list, and I know that some people in this room are lagging on that. So if the sequel is going to come out, maybe it's your time to catch up on that one film franchise.
Let me just melt into
Would
this
it be
chair
called
right
Attack
now.
the Blocks?
I sure hope so.
Like the aliens?
Attack the Block, the second story.
I'd still watch the fuck out of that.
Yep, so that's all I got for news.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for news this week. If you want to check out more news as it develops, then you can head over to Twitter, where we will be posting our primary news sources.
I think Twitter is going to be a lot faster and easier way for me to deliver the incredible amount of news that Ashley, the intern, has been sending us.
Yeah, she's hard at work.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to just hit the tweet button and write a little blurb than it was to do all the Facebook mumbo jumbo, so
We are going to get started with our totally 80 Stranger Things trivia. If you are listening, then don't forget that you can watch us do our trivia on the old YouTubes. John, take it away.
Trivia!
Dude, for a second I was like, fuck yeah, let's move past it.
yep.
He said, no, no, no.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Not in my house. Not in your house.
Stop, leave us alone.
Then answer the question. Same category.
Oh, please stop.
Name the killer in Friday the 13th.
Jason! Jason! Jason!
I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It was Jason.
Afraid not? No way.
In typical fashion.
There it is.
I, Counselor Tone, will be reading to Counselor Jiggity John. Counselor Jiggity John is going to read to Counselor Anthony, and then Counselor Anthony will read back to me. We are doing the Totally 80s Trivial Pursuit Stranger Things edition. Here we go with the first category. Counselor John, it is movies. In Big, what tune does Josh not play on the giant piano? Is it Chopsticks, Jingle Bells, or Heart and Soul?
I want to say it's Jingle Bells.
But what are you going to say?
I'm going to say it's Jingle Bells.
It is Jingle Bells. You are correct.
All right.
I love that movie. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a
shimmy, shimmy, cocoa puff, shimmy, shimmy, rock. Yeah.
Glowing review.
Yeah.
All right, for your movie.
I'll give it 5 bigs out of 5.
What's that movie app called?
Letterboxd?
Yeah, that's your review.
Yeah.
I like that movie. Shimmy, shimmy, Cocoa Puff. It's like, God damn it, he was right.
Oh,
He got the shimmy, shimmy, cocoa puff reference.
oh, fuck. All right.
Dial it in.
Counselor Silva, for your movie section, we are looking at in the teen comedy Better Off Dead. What angry character wants his $2 from John Cusack?
I don't know. Let's see. John Cusack in 1408. He was in room. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
In the teen comedy Better Off Dead, what angry character wants his $2 from John Cusack?
Frank. Len Franklin. I want to say Frank.
New character to the Rogues Gallery. It is the Paperboy.
Okay, well, that is something I'll have to add to my list to check out. Maybe.
Don't get nervous. It's only the first round, man.
Yeah.
You still got this.
Counselor Tone, what kind of animal is Benji in Benji the Hunted?
Is it a dog?
It is a dog, played by Benjean, the daughter of the original Benji actor. Wow, I didn't know there was like a dog lineage in Hollywood.
Yeah. Push me on the board. Push me on the board. Hey. Be my hype guy.
Yeah. On the board.
All right, so then...
Check out his mixtape. He's under tone deaf.
Oh, my God. 101.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say it, but he fucking keeps punning me.
Joke a minute, man.
He's punishing you. Fucking...
The Punisher.
We are going to move into the TV category. Counselor John, what Atlanta-based sitcom about interior designers starred Dixie Carter, Annie Potts, and Delta Burke?
Is that designing women?
How the fuck do you know that?
That was a true like Dallas moment from the
Definitely.
previous episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's straight up just because of references from common sitcoms.
Yeah, that's right, if that wasn't clear.
Wow.
Great job. I'm bringing the Mentos back.
I'm not editing another episode where you win. I know I've said that in the past, and the episodes keep coming out.
Listen here. Let me enjoy my summer of victories before we get back to where I'm going to get my ass handed
trust
to
us,
me.
John. Winter is coming.
And apparently I know nothing. All right. What animated series based on a comic strip included Mr. Wilson, Margaret, and a dog named Ruff with 2 Fs?
It's going to be Dennis the Menace?
It is indeed Dennis the Menace.
The Menace?
So,
Cool.
Charlie the Menace.
Charles the Menace.
Nice job, buddy.
Thanks.
I feel like we don't congratulate each other enough on this.
Yeah. This is just going to be all just a circle jerk.
This is just a circle of platitudes.
Yeah. Counselor Tone, what Colorado city is also the name of a cartoon dinosaur who wears sunglasses, skateboards, and hangs out with California teens Jeremy and Wally?
I don't know, Boulder.
It's Denver. Denver, The Last Dinosaur, aired in the late 80s.
I feel like I could see him.
I don't
Is
know
he
anything
orange?
about that shit, but I definitely probably also would have gone with Boulder.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that my dad would probably be like, how did you guys not know Denver the dinosaur? And I'm like, Dad, you are 27 years older than I am. You are literally twice my age. Like,
But Dad, you're like 27 years older than I am, okay?
Forget about it.
Forget about
Or
it.
did you forget about it?
let's get one thing straight. You don't ask me about dinosaurs, and I don't ask you about
Computers.
computers. Yeah.
You got all those dinosaurs over there, over here. All right, we ready?
Yeah.
Okay. John moves into an early lead as we go on to music. Counselor Jiggity John, Counselor JB, here we go. What British act is known for songs? Oh, shit. including holding back the years, and if you don't know me by now, is it simply blue, simply red, or mellow yellow?
Is it simply red?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So he can see the fucking.
I cannot see the card.
Those. Are you wearing X-ray specs, bro?
I'm just wearing.
Are you wearing X-ray specs?
I'm just wearing regular specs.
The tail of the super specs.
Because if I didn't have them on, I couldn't see the card that I'm holding here in front of my face.
That's fair. I think we're all on that same boat.
Counselor Anthony, who made a name for herself by singing "I Think We're Alone Now" in malls across the United States in 1987.
Think we're alone now.
Doesn't seem to be anyone around. I know the song, but I'm trying to think of who.
No, that's not it.
I don't know. I'm just gonna guess Cyndi Lauper because that's who we had last time.
It is Tiffany.
Coming at you quick, Counselor Tone with a curveball. What synth pop song by the Human League begins with the line, "You were working as a waitress in a cocktail bar"?
Don't you want me?
Yep. Don't you want me, baby?
Yeah, I felt pretty good.
Good job. Yeah.
Pretty much you singing it helped.
I felt like it would, and as soon as I did it, I was like, wow, really screwed myself over there with my amazing rendition.
It's beautiful, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, John's still winning. Not a big fan of it, but we're gonna move into famous people and events. So the whatever goes category. Counselor John. What radio show host first partnered with news anchor Robin Quivers when he landed a gig in Washington, D.C. in 1981?
Howard Stern.
Yeah, it is.
It took me so long. I kept wanting to say Weird Al Yankovic.
I can definitely see where you would make that mix up.
It's the curly hair. It really is.
Yeah.
I just don't like... no, I take that back. Good job, John.
Oh my god, that's terrifying.
Don't butter him up. We already agreed that we were on a low-cal diet when it came to buttering John up in these trivia.
Calzone zone.
Yeah.
From the two tones.
Counselor Anthony, what did Geraldo Rivera find when he opened the secret vault of gangster Al Capone on live TV in 1986? Piles of cash, empty bottles, or old furniture?
It was a note that said, "Say hi to your mother for me, all right?"
I'm going to say old furniture.
It was empty bottles. Yeah, so it says here on the card, I remember seeing clips of this. Viewers waited 2 hours to essentially see nothing.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like that's fitting for Al Capone, like that he would have empty bottles, I assume, of some illegal liquor or something. I don't know. And in the purple category, Counselor Tone, what Texas journalist began his 24-year career as news anchor of the CBS Evening News in 1981? I trust you can't read the card from this far, so...
Oh, I always forget that the answers are on the back.
Yeah.
Walter Cronkite.
It was Dan Would You Rather.
Would I rather...
Dan Rather.
Dan, would you rather?
I would
Rather.
I would rather it be Walter Cronkite.
Rather. It was Dan Rather.
John still in the lead as we move into trends, tech, and fun. Counselor JB in Dungeons and Dragons. What is another name for an illithid, which is also the name of a giant monster in Stranger Things Season 2?
A mind flayer?
That is correct.
We were literally just talking about mind flayers like 2 days ago in our D&D campaign. So
wow, dude.
Pays to be a nerd, huh, John?
Yes, it definitely does.
I think that you're probably going to sweep this card.
I'm happy with this.
Good job, John. Right on, brother.
Oh my god.
Can I borrow somebody's printer for my letter of resignation?
I was like, where's this going?
God damn it. If you were wearing a zippered storage pouch around your waist like a belt, what are you wearing?
I'm rocking a fanny pack, bro.
Just to double check, yes, it is a fanny pack.
Yeah, just the question I wanted to get a point for.
Good job, buddy.
I think I was just saying on a previous episode that fanny packs were tight.
Well, I mean, unless you loosen it.
Alrighty then.
What was that? Was that Beetlejuice with
all
the mask?
right.
Yeah. Nice fucking model. Counselor Tone, what's another term for the thick gold chain worn by rappers like Biz Markie? Is it a dookie chain, a pookie chain, or a mookie chain?
A dookie chain.
Correct. It is apparently a dookie chain.
That's tight.
Oh,
baby, you
got my
what I
dookie chain.
That's Biz Marquis song.
Yeah.
If you didn't know.
No, I knew.
Because he's
okay.
got a dookie chain.
All right, so John is officially the winner this week, but we are still going to go ahead and hit you with that Stranger Things category in the Season 2 episode, The Spy. While Billy lifts weights, he listens to Round and Round by what rock band? Is it Poison, Motley Crue, or Rat?
That's going to be Rat.
That is correct for the
Wow.
sweep.
That's truly impressive.
For your Stranger Things category, Counselor Silva.
Hit me.
Hit me. I want you to do it. What game show was Eleven's mother watching when Eleven was first reunited with her?
Well, I feel like it probably has something to do with, like, people uniting or couples or something, but I'm going to say Pyramid.
That has to do with any of those things.
Match game.
It is Family Feud.
That, yeah.
People uniting?
Yeah, I mean, you were like right on it with your pre-guess.
I probably would not have gotten around to Family Feud anyway. I probably would have guessed several other stupid things, so I felt like I would just cut that short, like save
Family Feud's
everybody.
not a game show. That's a way of life.
Counselor Tone for your Stranger Things. Question. Which computer language does Bob use to override Hawkins Lab's security codes and unlock the doors?
C+.
It is basic, because Bob's a basic bitch.
Oh,
Damn.
hey, I love
Hey, don't
love Bob.
speak
No,
ill of the dead.
he's lovable for his basic bitchness.
That's Rudy. That concludes trivia this week. John, you are the winner, crowned back in the house of the JB. And
I had it last week.
a sweet. Oh, I thought Anthony won last week.
No, he won
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Oh, so I have to say it. I have to say what it is. John's second peak streak, and I'm so happy about it.
It's also my second swept card.
Nobody likes a braggart, John. Okay?
Yeah.
We're trying to be nice. Okay,
You guys are not doing a very good
we're
job at all.
trying to be nice.
I've never once shown a bit of emotion when I won trivia on this show, okay?
Because I will destroy you. Is what I'm saying. I will destroy you. Well, I'm just trying at this point to see if like I can get a perfect card, rewarded or have some sort of like big prize or cash reward or something. I'm the best. Yeah. Around.
All right, that wraps it up this week for trivia. Congratulations, John, on your win. That was super fun. If you want to check out
Super
more
fun
news,
is one way to put it.
If you want to check out more news and trivia, then make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you never miss a spine-tingling episode. And don't forget to hit us up on Twitter and on our socials because we're having a blast. We hope you're having a blast too. And we are going to jump into our main discussion.
Hello, weirdos. Hello, creeps. Here I am at Camp Porcelain Peak. Camp is really scary and strange. And they say all the counselors are deranged. I went swimming with a kid named Jason. While some counselors were sucking faces. You remember that girl with Ricky? Turns out she's a dude and showed us her dickie. We tell stories around the fire about killers who won't retire. Most of them all like to wear masks, and they'll slash us if we drink or smoke on some grass. Don't be scared or flip your lids. Killers don't always hurt us kids. Plus we rarely go out alone. We're more scary than the on its own.
As mentioned earlier, we are going to be telling 3 summer camp fire stories.
These are all true 110%. Don't you dare say they're not.
Sometimes 200%. So what we're going to do is a round robin style. John's going to read, and then Anthony's going to read, and then I'm going to read, and in between we are going to discuss what we liked about those stories. And that's pretty much it. We thought that these are some classics. We thought that they were pretty scary. You know, a lot of folklore comes from oral tradition. like we mentioned
Yeah, it
with
does.
last week's episode. And so we wanted to continue that tradition and scare some children and maybe adults.
Yeah, and my hope is that if you are planning on going camping this summer and you listen to this, you get a little bit of inspiration for spooking your friends and family out there.
Yeah, you got to spice up those campfire stories. So the story that I have for you is called The Whistling Man. I found this on Reddit by the username Asa Karisti. I apologize if I butchered that because I'm sure I did. All right, The Whistling Man. Me and my father were always close. I had a great childhood, lots of memories, good and bad. My father was always there for me when I needed him the most. Me and Greg, my father, always loved hunting. It became a passion after Greg took me bird hunting. He didn't let me shoot, but I was always there watching. One thing I always could remember was the whistling. Greg used to whistle while we were walking. We had an interesting tactic of walking because we would walk further away so we couldn't see each other. This way we could guide all the animals to a single spot. My dad would always whistle on and on. Sometimes I would meet him in the forest while walking. He would have the same smile on his face he always had, and I would each time say, "Nice whistling." His smile would always grow larger, and he would turn the other way and walk out of my peripheral vision. This would happen on most hunting trips in the same forest. My dad didn't whistle in any other forests, but just this particular one. One day I asked my father, "Dad, why do you always whistle in the Northeast forest?" He looked stunned when I said that. "What do you mean, Jack?" "You always whistle while we're walking, and sometimes we would meet. Jack, you're the one whistling all the time." That made me question my sanity. How could this be? I'm positive I saw my father on the trips whistling. I asked, "Did you see me walking?" He said, "Yes, of course. You would always smile when I said you were good at whistling." I told my father to forget it. So I always thought he was whistling, but somehow it was me the whole time. There was only one way to end this. I went to the Northeast Forest on my own and listened the whole way through for whistling. Halfway through the forest, I heard it. The same whistling as every trip. I continued to walk the trail. After about 10 minutes, I saw something. Someone from the bush came onto the trail. There was something familiar about him. I just couldn't put my finger on. Then I realized it. He was wearing a very similar outfit to the one I was wearing. He kept on whistling and walking. I shouted at him, "Nice whistling," after a few moments, and he stopped and turned around, mouth into a big smile, and it was my face smiling back at me. The other me said, "Your family likes my whistling, and for that, I'm not going to kill you." I was nervous and just smiled back. He started walking in the other way. When I couldn't see him anymore, I ran. When I got to my car, I was out of breath and exhausted. I couldn't believe what I'd seen in the forest. When I went into my car, I could see in the trees a man that looked identical to my father, also whistling. He was smiling, and he waved at me. I floored it out of there. When I got home, my father was sitting on the couch watching TV. I didn't tell him about the encounter, but I told him never to go back to that forest again. I never want to see that man again. The Northeast Forest is a hot spot for missing persons, and apparently my father and I were very lucky that we liked whistling.
Wow. I don't know if it's the room or what, but that legit gave me chills.
I think you're just chicken shit.
Okay. That was good. I
Yeah,
did
I
not
thought-
know that was going, and kind of had some Wendigo vibes to it, and some shape-shifting vibes, and maybe a little fairy changeling vibes.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it has kind of that doppelganger kind of feel. I mean, that was it obviously jumped right out at me because I'm big time into doppelganger lore, so it was something that I saw that and I was like, this is the perfect one for me.
What did you think, Counselor Anthony?
I thought that it was very, very creepy. I liked that it started out as kind of like a childhood memory type thing. I feel like those are always kind of the creepiest, when there's something that you kind of remembered fondly from your childhood, and then it turns out to be utterly terrifying. And in that case, I like that. I like when a story ties in, like, oh, and there are lots of disappearances in this area, and so we got very lucky, sort of thing. It reminds me a lot of the kind of stories like the who was in the back seat sort of thing, where it's like, oh, you were this close to getting, like, the best scary campfire stories are always like, you were this close to getting murked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There were a couple of stories that I stumbled upon on Reddit that were more along the lines of, like, there's an axe murderer in the back seat. Apparently that's very common amongst those stories. I thought this one was fairly original. There was another person who commented below it who said that they had a similar story, but I'm going to go ahead and hand the torch on over to Mr. Silva.
All right, campers. This is a 100% true story that happened to me, but just pretend that I'm Canadian so the story makes sense. This is from Reddit user Vital Duel, and the story is called A Campfire Story. For a number of years, I was a camp counselor at an overnight camp in the Muskoskos. I loved it more than any job I'd ever had, despite the non-existent pay, annoying campers, long days and short nights, crappy food, etc. For one, I got to tell as many scary stories as I could sputter out. There was nothing better than hanging around a dying campfire with a bunch of junior high kids who were demanding the scariest, most blood-curdling tales I knew. And I told them all. The babysitter with the eerie clown statue, the driver and the creepy gas attendant, the woman and her licking dog. I saved my best stories for the overnight trips we made in Algonquin Park. For non-Canadians, like me, it's a massive park in the middle of Ontario, spanning nearly 8,000 square kilometers. Days would be spent canoeing on pristine lakes, and nights would be spent around the fire, singing and making s'mores and being as rowdy as the only people within miles could be. Once the kids had quieted down, I told them stories of a stalker in the woods, with a face so horrifying it paralyzed all its victims in fear, or the group of campers who decided to spend a night across the lake from the abandoned, or was it, insane asylum. On this particular night, I'd finished up the tales, once again insisting that they were entirely true, and sent the campers to their tents. It had been an exhausting day, and none of the 6 kids were in any mood to stay up later. My fellow counselor had also decided to pack it in, leaving just me on a fallen log next to the dying fire. I took a deep breath of the cool, fresh, pine-scented air and looked out at the lake. The partial moon reflected off the glassy water, and on the other side I could see towering cliffs going up several hundred feet. I considered whether we could canoe over, climb up a few dozen feet, and do some cliff jumping. I grinned. The camp director would have my head if we did that, if he found out. Movement at the very top of the cliffs caught my eye. There was a small light bobbing along the peak. At first I thought it was a star, but it was larger and gave off a golden glow. It slowly moved back and forth in a small arc. As I sat up and watched it, another appeared next to it, bobbing along the top of the cliff. Then another, and another, and then a few more. My stomach dropped into my feet. I grabbed my bag and pulled my digital camera out, then focused it on the little glowing orbs and used the zoom function. I counted them, and then I counted again. In a flash, I was up and running to the tents. Hey, guys, wake up, we gotta go. There was movement in the tents, and then I had 7 confused heads looking out at me. My counselor wore a mixture of concern and pure anger. I hate to do this, I continued, but the clouds are looking really threatening. There's a big rainstorm coming in. If we get caught in it, it's going to ruin our trip. Seriously? Laura, my co-counselor, asked. We're in the middle of the woods. Where would we go? I pulled a map and flashlight out of my bag. There's a ranger station a few kilometers south of us. I traced the path with my finger. Thank God. We can make it there in a few hours. The campers groaned. Can't we just go in the morning? No, I shouted, my voice echoing across the lake. I lowered it. Come on. Let's get packed up and go. I'll tell you a story along the way. I smiled, though I could feel my lips quivering. It's my best one. That seemed to get them going, and within 10 minutes the tents were packed up, and we'd begun our trek into the deep woods, with small flashlights our only guide. When I was confident we were moving at a steady pace, I allowed myself to relax and began to tell my favorite campfire story. Centuries before the European settlers made their way into the country, it was inhabited by the First Nations people. They had made the trip from across Western Canada, following the migration patterns of large animals such as buffalo and bison. Eventually they reached Ontario, at which point they split off into smaller groups of travelers, each searching for a section of land to call their own. Legend has it that one group, consisting of about 20 men, women, and children, had ventured through this very area in search of a place called home. Though it wasn't even the end of October, the weather had made a turn for the worst, and as the group journeyed around the lake, a fierce blizzard hit. Within an hour, the group found themselves in blinding snow and below 0 temperatures. The clothes they had on them were made for the fall, not this sort of weather, and there weren't any Canada Goose jackets around back then. But they pressed on. They didn't have any other choice. Night was falling as they reached a cliff bluff which towered over a cold, choppy lake. There was no stopping for this group. They'd die if they didn't make it past the cliffs. But with darkness setting in and the snow falling even harder, visibility was almost non-existent. So one of the elders had an idea. Using the little glowing kerosene lamp they had left, he lit a lantern for each of the travelers and had them carry it in front of them. Not so that they could see the cliffs, but so they could see who was in front of them, allowing them to follow each other across the narrow bluffs. With the strongest of the men leading the way, the group began to cross the cliffs. The freezing wet snow soaked every bone in their body. The harsh wind chilled any exposed skin and threatened to push them right off the rock. Their path was no more than a few feet wide and would have been slippery to even the best of hiking boots, let alone hand-fashioned moccasins. Slowly, painstakingly slowly, they made their way up the cliffs, praying that whatever lay on the other side could shelter them from the intensifying storm. They were about halfway up, hundreds of feet above the lake, though it was well out of their vision. In fact, all they could see in this blinding storm was the lantern in front of them, acting as a beacon to guide their steps. If the light moved up, they moved up. If it went down, they moved down. Each of the travelers was almost in a trance, caring about nothing but the glowing orb a few feet away. For the leader, though, there was no such luxury. He moved forward blindly, feeling along the cliff with his free arm, though his skin was so numb he could barely feel anything. As the path wound back again, he made a misstep and lost his footing, just as a gust of wind blasted his back. He desperately grasped for the hold, but his frozen fingers couldn't get anything. With a terrified scream, he slipped off the cliffs and fell into the icy black lake. The rest of the party didn't see him fall, of course. All they saw was his glowing orb, dropping from the bluff and disappearing in the darkness. There was no time to mourn. They continued on, but the storm was worsening. After another minute, one of the children, his body unable to withstand the cold, dropped away, his lantern glowing until the choppy waters put it out. Another, having seen this, lost his balance and fell. This pattern went on until there were just 5 people left, fumbling along in the darkness, following the light in front. As hard as they tried, the cliffs were unforgiving. The remaining men and women fell down to 4, then 3, then 2. And then there was just one left, who legend says cursed the earth as his legs slipped and he plunged hundreds of feet down, his lantern the last one to be extinguished. Of the 20 members who tried to overcome the cliffs, I finished, not one of them survived. They say that sometimes when the conditions are right, you can see the orbs along the cliff, symbols of the lost travelers who will never find their homes. As the story ended, leaving the campers in an eerie silence, I saw lights up ahead. A wave of relief poured over me. We picked up the pace and found the ranger station bursting with activity, with a half-dozen people running around, loading up trucks and shouting into radios. The wind was beginning to really pick up, and I heard thunder in the distance. "Hey, you kids!" A large, burly man with a full beard and mustache ran up to us. "Get in the trucks! We don't have much time." Laura and I led the kids to one of the pickup trucks. "What's going on?" I asked the man. "Didn't you hear?" Another gust of wind. "Huge storm systems heading right for us. Already seen tornadoes touch down. We're getting everyone out of here. Let's go." We all climbed into the truck's bed. I collapsed down, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. The ranger climbed into the front, and we took down a makeshift road. My head was spinning. It wasn't possible. "How?" Laura slid next to me, keeping her voice low. "How did you know that we had to get out of there?" I looked over at her. My face felt empty of any blood. I saw the lights." "What?" she gasped, then caught herself. "How many?" I took a deep breath. 8. She looked around at all the campers, who were now lying against each other, asleep despite the bumpy road. "That's all of us, my God." I nodded and leaned against her. Laura had learned the traveler's story before, and she knew that I'd left out a key bit of information. The lights were real, but they were never random. If they were shining, bobbing back and forth, swinging in a small arc in the snow, it was because they had a message, a warning. One light would shine for each person who was about to die.
Damn.
Wow.
The end.
Again, chills. Well, I brought my B game because those were fucking rad.
I've been wanting to tell that one for years, so...
Great stuff, dude.
And that's a campfire story inside a campfire story.
Yeah, that one is incredible. I really dig that.
Thanks, I had a lot of fun reading it.
All right, so mine comes from Reddit, from the No Sleep Reddit. And this one is called The Lucian Twins. And it is by username Leo Da Vinci. But, Da Vinci. All right, apparently this is a series, so this is the first part, but I thought it was pretty good. "I will never forget the Lucian twins. Even after 10 years, they are still fresh in my memory. Too fresh. It was my first year of teaching when they were in my class. My college diploma was framed on my desk, and I had placed a signed picture from my professor, now deceased, on my wall behind me. In cursive it read, "To Mary, my brightest, that you may teach the world." I watched over my kindergarten class as if they were my own children, but the Lucian twins were my favorite. There was Abigail, the blonde one with a minuscule nose, and Bridget, shorter with brunette hair. "Miss Mary," Abigail would start, tugging on my dress before Bridget continued, "We were wondering," Abigail would take over, "if we could go to the sticker box," Bridget would now speak, "and take a star." And of course, there was no way I could say no to the couple. They were irresistible, from their broken sentences to the heart-shaped lockets they wore that were embossed with their names. I could never imagine something happening to them, but fate follows no rules, and something did. Word about the car crash spread around the school faster than the ambulance could reach the hospital. It had been at an intersection where a pickup truck had slammed into the side of their compact car on the Friday morning commute. The driver had still been drunk from the night before. The gas tank was immediately ruptured, spewing the right side of the car with fuel, and flames licked up through the back seat. Bridget was strapped into a car seat above them, and rumor has it that Abigail watched her twin burn alive. When the fireman freed Abigail, she threw herself onto the still smoldering bones of Bridget, and her sister's red-hot locket branded itself into her earlobe. The body of her single mother survived, but the toll of the loss of her daughter sickened her soul. Abigail returned to class 2 weeks later. The hair on the right side of her head was singed and steadily grew back, though the color was darker. A doctor's inspection revealed nothing else wrong with her, except a deafness in her right ear. Hushed voices in the school hallway whispered her eardrum imploded by the sheer loudness of her sister's dying screams. But most unnerving was her sister's name scarred into the lobe of her deaf ear and surrounded by the outline of a heart-shaped locket. From then on, no student would sit on the right side of Abigail, and I had to rearrange the seating charts to place her next to the wall. Abigail seemed content there, in an island of isolation. Before her sister died, they rarely conversed with the other students, and now was no different. In social time, I would hear Abigail talking to the wall in incoherent sentences. "Abigail, honey, what are you saying?" I asked after she returned. "Oh, Miss Mary," she said, "I'm..." Then she would pause, waiting. "And then we thought..." Another pause. Silence. "And we can, can't we?" "Sure you can, honey," I replied, though the exchange made my hair stand on end. She smiled again and cocked her ear right, the deaf one to the wall, pausing again, then speaking. She said, "Yes." Then the gibberish continued, and the closing bell rang. It wasn't until I drove halfway home that I realized the gaps in Abigail's conversation were where Bridget would be speaking. Months passed, and Abigail became even more an outcast in the class. The kindergartners came to forget the disaster, but some students even began bullying Abigail. I revised the seating chart again, and I moved her close to my desk. "Miss Mary," clamored Abigail one day, pulling my dress. She stumbled, and I reached to catch her, but she fell against my professor's portrait on the wall, shattering the protective glass. She picked up the remains of the glass, biting deep into her soft palm. She didn't notice. "I'm sorry, Miss Mary," she said, and her voice changed tenor. "We didn't mean to break..." Again, pitch changed. "Your picture..." I stopped. It was her first complete sentence since the crash. "It's okay," I said, holding her, blood from her hands dripping onto me, but it felt cold, and I rushed to bandage it. "I'm sure you will teach the world one day, Miss Mary," she said, her voice continuing the inflections. My heart froze as I read the note on the portrait for the 1000th time. Abigail couldn't read cursive. "How did you know that?" I asked. "Bridget told me. She talks to him now," she said, curling her streak of dark hair around her finger. "That's not all she tells me. She tells me terrible things sometimes, and I can't stop hearing her." Then she started crying and noticed the glass embedded deep into her hands. "She never stops." Her voice elevated to a yell. When I took the picture back, her sentences became broken again, and I moved her on the seating chart away from my desk. Over time, the other students realized Abigail's reaction to old objects. They'd bring her things that they found in the attic, artifacts their grandparents owned, and watched as she cocked her ear to the right, and her sentences became whole or broken when she held them. It became a game to them, listening to the stories she made up, but the effect took an obvious toll on her, and she soon started wearing gloves, even in the dead heat of summer. But one boy, larger than the others, a brute, known for his bullying, liked the look Abigail's face gave as they pushed artifacts into her squirming palms, and he was the quickest to see the fear that she felt when they finally gave her an old bullet shell and ran home afterwards to find an old box in his basement his parents forbade him to open. Inside was his great-grandfather's Nazi uniform, a warden at a concentration camp, and he twisted off one of the buttons. The next day he found Abigail on the playground and pinned her against the chain-link fence. He ripped the gloves off and forced the button onto her hand, tightly closing her fingers about it. When she began screaming, he only laughed and closed his fists tighter. I reached them too late. When I pulled the boy off her, she was sobbing uncontrollably, both her hands locked into fists. She dropped the button like it was searing hot, but refused to open the other fist until the paramedics arrived and knocked her out with anesthesia. Only then, they pulled her severed right ear out, torn off by her bloody fingernails, with Bridget still written on the lobe. But most terrifying of all was when she screamed, I could hear two voices screaming.
It sounds like it's a kind of a mishmash of some like true life stories I've heard of like twins with creepy connections and a little bit of like Carrie or something.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
And I felt like that was kind of like a good ending. It almost seemed like that could have been the end of the whole story.
Yeah. I want to read the rest, but I feel like that's enough. Like just to like it makes it, like I said, it makes it its own complete story. I really think that the scariest campfire stories are always the ones that take some little like real life sort of fact and try to weave it in. And because I felt like that one was scarier for me because I felt like I had heard similar real life stories about, you know, creepy twins and creepy kids and stuff like that who have that strange kind of connection that almost borders on supernatural.
Right.
Yeah. So that was kind of like where that person probably drew some of their inspiration. And then like in my story, I liked it because it set it in a specific place, like in Canada. Felt very much like it was a thing that could have happened. And based on all the comments on here, this is an actual story that this person has told. You know, you don't know how much on Reddit these things are actual things that happen, but it was pretty creepy for John's, like that kind of like the Hat Man, the Whistling Man, like all that kind of stuff.
Smiling
like,
Man.
Smiling Man always creeps me out.
That was one that actually got turned into a short.
Yeah,
and
the Smiling Man? Or?
Super fucking creepy, dude.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it. So we hope you enjoyed those campfire discussions. We had a blast. That was kind of a precursor to us writing our own campfire discussions that we'll probably do toward the end of our Camp Porcelain Peak, which will be the end of next month.
Yeah, so we still got plenty of time in camp here to do some fun stuff, but, I mean, what is a spooky summer camp without campfire stories? I really hope that I don't embarrass myself and come up with something really good for you guys.
We sat by the fire, and then who was foe?
There once was a house, just sitting there.
No parents. No skeletons for parents.
All right, we'll go ahead and move into our watch list.
Look what I did. I packed you and your cousin some goodies for the ride up to camp. Wasn't that nice of me? Any chips? Why, of course. I believe there's a whole bag.
For me for this week on my watch list was a little Amazon Prime show called The Boys.
Oh, you finally checked out?
Yeah, did you guys watch any of it?
I watched the first episode.
I never had a huge interest in it, but I heard a lot of good things from different people. It just like, I felt like I had seen the whole crass superheroes thing, but...
Yeah, so they're all just pieces of shit.
Yeah.
And I was not expecting it to go in that direction. I thought it was going to be just like the darker side of... Like, they're edgier heroes, but they're all just kind of
they're like
dirt
actively
bags.
dirtbags, yeah.
It's pretty rough. The opening is like a dude running through, like a Flash-type character, running through somebody.
Yeah, I saw the first, like, 5 minutes of the show, so I'd seen that part, yeah. And I was like, okay, I know what to expect.
I'm enjoying it. The kid on it looks a lot like Michael Shannon.
Oh, really?
But I guess it's Goldie... No, not Goldie Hawn. It's someone's son. Dennis Quaid's son.
Oh, cool.
But I was watching him, and I was like, dude, I swear, if you told me you were related to Michael Shannon, I believe you. I think it's Carl Urban is one of the main characters, and he's really good.
I like Carl Urban in some things.
All right, what about you, John? What's on your watch list this week?
It's not a watch list this week. It's a playlist. I have been a big fan of the Pokemon franchise for a long time, which lends itself into that sci-fi territory with large monsters that you battle each other with.
If you say so.
It's definitely sci-fi, for sure.
It's loose, but keep going.
They're
Pokemon are aliens. I'll accept it.
Yeah. From the most recent games, the Nintendo Switch games, Pokemon Sword and Pokemon Shield, they just released a DLC for those, and it's pretty freaking dope. It has a lot of quality of life fixes, added a lot of Pokemon to it, and it has like a new area where like you're actually able to have like your Pokemon follow you around on like a full blown like an HD title release, which is like little kid me would be like, ah!
Yeah,
you know, it is very cool. I would definitely, if you have played it, I would suggest to get back into it and to check out that DLC because it is very good.
So my watch list is also going to be kind of short, just because I've been watching some camp movies that we will talk a little bit more about later. Two things that I did want to recommend, though. First would be, I know a lot of people are very big on the Last Drive-In stuff with Joe Bob Briggs. I would consider myself a part of the #mutant fam. I love the Last Drive-In. But if you want to go see Joe Bob when he's young and even sexier, and on TNT, the large majority of the like interstitial clips from his old TNT show Monster Vision are on YouTube, and those include a ton of really good interviews with actors and actresses from tons of different horror movies. The one I was watching today was with Roddy Piper, and it was for they were showing They Live. Obviously, the YouTube video cut the actual movie out, but all the interview stuff was still there. And that guy is hilarious, and he talks all about like the lines he improvised and his wrestling career. And so if you're tapped out on the Last Drive-In stuff and you've seen all those episodes, and you're totally accidental, by the way, and you want more Joe Bob, there are plenty of cool things. There's a Beetlejuice episode on there that I was just checking out.
Nice.
Hey,
yeah.
I love the juice.
Yeah, and then the other thing that I wanted to recommend is a weird movie that I checked out last night with Justin Long and the dude from Scrubs.
Zach Braff, Donald Faison.
Donald Faison. And the actress from A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night, the main actress whose name I regrettably forget at this moment.
Zach Braff?
Zach Braff, yeah.
Definitely Zach Braff.
They are in a movie that just came out called The Wave. Have you guys checked this out?
Sounds familiar, but I have no idea what it is.
I just stumbled upon it last night, saw, 2020 sci-fi. I like Justin Long, so I tuned into it. Basically, it is about Justin Long plays a shitty insurance salesman type, which I thought was funny because isn't that like what his girlfriend did in Drag Me to Hell? She was like
loans.
Okay, yeah. Well, it's a very similar
officer.
situation. Like he, is having to make shitty decisions to get a promotion in his company, and he's like, ripping off some old family or whatever. He goes to a party with a girl, ends up taking this drug, this weird random drug from this kind of old guru type guy who's at the party, and starts the whole rest of the movie is his crazy hallucinations where he starts jumping through time. Like he'll just be standing in a room and he'll turn and suddenly he'll be 5 hours in the future, like with his toothbrush still in his mouth. And there's all kinds of like really trippy visuals and stuff. And it's all this existential journey to him becoming a better person, but through these really crazy frenetic edits and drug trip things. It was pretty funny. It wasn't anything incredible, and I would probably say that the like 60-something% that it has a rotten is pretty fair.
Yeah.
But if you're in the mood for something sci-fi, I feel like we don't give that enough exposure, so I thought I would throw that in here. And that is all I have for this short watch list. I'm sure I'll have a little bit more for everyone on the extended watch list.
Yes, so as he just mentioned, if you want to check out our extended watch list, then head over to Instagram where we do a little post on that has everything that we watched this week that we weren't able to talk about on the show. Other than that, that is going to wrap it up for our episode this week. Next week, we are very excited to dive into camp movies that aren't Friday the 13th. So, some of the ones that we will be watching are going to be The Burning, Madman, and the classic Sleepaway Camp. And we will be joined by a very special guest from Radio Nasties.
Yeah, I'm super excited because the Radio Nasty guys are absolutely hilarious. Their podcast is, like John, like you said, sounds very much like us but British.
Yeah.
Which automatically makes me respect them more and makes me think they are way funnier.
Yes, definitely.
So I'm a little bit intimidated to have them on, but I think it's going to be a really good time.
I think they've already done an episode on The Burning on their show.
They did.
So
I listened to it so I could kind of see what jokes they'd made and what they'd already covered from the movie. So,
but yeah, I would suggest if you're not familiar with them, give them a listen. That episode, I would say, is a good one to check out to kind of get yourself in the right mood and mindset for our episode for next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we end it, I'll do some quick shout-outs from Instagram. Dark Rift Films, thanks for the follow. Also, Horror Skillet, some horror reviews. Horror Cave 27, X Shane the Barber X, Horror Boards, Horror Blessed Society, and Horror Movie Fan 9. All of them followed us this week on Instagram. We thank you guys so much. We appreciate the love. We hope that it keeps coming, and we hope that we keep giving you content that you want to hear. That is going to wrap it up for our Camp Porcelain Peak episode on Campfire Stories.
We hope you were spooked. We hope you were ooked.
I have been Counselor Tone.
Counselor John.
And as always, Internet Camp. And all around Anthony Silva.
So humble.
Yeah, I know.
It's ridiculous how humble you can be.
I didn't know we were just a long-form Tinder bio.
Dark walks on the beach. Okay, well, before this gets any more out of hand, thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.
Keep it campy.
You can find Porcelain Peak on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Wherever you listen, don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe so you never miss a spine-tingling episode. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at porcelainpeak.com for additional content. Special thanks to Randy Greer for composing the Porcelain Peak intro music and to Anthony Silva for designing the Porcelain Peak logo. All episodes and additional content is hosted, written, produced, designed, and edited by the Porcelain Peak team, consisting of Anthony Perez, John Brasher, and Anthony Silva.
This has been here words for awareness production.
Do you know that some Stephen King's
Easy with the Bill Cosby impersonation.
He suddenly take Jason and touch him in his genitals.
Rudy.